Have you ever had a premonition that something was going to happen, and it did? Have you suddenly thought of someone whom you have not had in mind for months or years, only to get a letter or a phone call from that person, or to run into him at an unexpected time and place? Have you had a strong urge to do or not to do something and followed your urge, later finding out that subsequent events proved your urge was right? Have you had a vivid dream or a vision of some event which later came to pass? Have you felt the invisible presence of some intelligence, known or unknown to you? If any of these experiences have been yours, it is possible that you have had a manifestation of what is today called extrasensory perception, or ESP. In this video, the author Sherman shares his experience in thought transference. All of us have within us an incredible mental power that can change our lives overnight. Please like and subscribe to our channel to learn more about the power of your mind and how you can use ESP in your everyday life. When the courthouse clock struck 2. When I read extracts from the book by Thomas Hudson to a high school friend named Homer and told him of my experience with the electric light linesman, he volunteered to try telepathy with me, since Hudson had stated that it was easier to transmit a thought to a person when he was asleep and the conscious mind at rest. Homer suggested, "Why don't you try to send me a thought some night while I'm asleep and wake me up at a certain time? I happen to be a sound sleeper and I seldom wake up for anything." This simple experiment appealed to me, but I told Homer I would not attempt it immediately because I felt he would be anticipating it too strongly and this might interfere with possible results. Homer said he would forget about it until and if something happened. He lived on the other side of town from me, and while we attended the same school, I did not see him again until the experiment was tried. On the third night, following our agreement, I sat in my bedroom about 10 o'clock at night, at a time when Homer said he was usually at home and asleep. I could look out the window at the night sky and see the face of the clock on the courthouse dome 2 blocks away. Before me, on my lap, was a copy of the high school annual, turned to a page which showed Homer's photograph. I felt, somehow, that if I could be aided by visualizing Homer's features in my mind's eyes while I addressed him vocally as well as mentally, that this would assist me in the transmission. This was solely my idea. I looked at Homer's picture until I could shut my eyes and see his image in my mind's eye. Then, fixing my attention upon him, I spoke, putting all the feeling I could behind my words. "Homer, this is Harold. You are going to awaken exactly at 2 o'clock this morning and think of me as you hear the town clock striking 2. I kept on repeating this statement for about 15 minutes, sometimes opening my eyes and gazing out the window at the town clock and picturing the hands pointing to 2 a.m., and then closing my eyes and retaining in my mind this visualized image, which I then willed to Homer. I felt myself to be under quite an emotional strain, as though some energy was going out from me and was not being received. These are feelings difficult to describe. It was almost as though I had made contact with Homer's subconscious mind and had been repulsed. This caused me to try even harder to get through to him. All of a sudden, there came over a feeling of great mental relief, as though the message I had been sending had finally found lodgment in Homer's mind. Instantly, I discontinued the attempted transmission and went to bed and to sleep. The next morning, I was awakened at 7 o'clock by the ringing of the telephone and sensed instantly who it was. "Hello, Homer. Did it work?" I greeted. "Did it work?" said Homer excitedly. "What time did you try to wake me up?" "Just as the town clock was striking 2, I said. "That's it," cried Homer. "But don't ever do it again." I came to, wide awake. I could feel your presence in the room, and it felt like you had touched me on the forehead. I heard the town clock strike. It was uncanny. I had to get up and turn on the light before I could get rid of the feeling that you were right there with me. Gosh, there's something to this, all right, but it's too scary for me." If Homer was startled by this experience, I was equally so. As I tried to think through what had happened, it raised a number of questions. Since I had concentrated on Homer shortly after 10 p.m., he must have received my thought at the time. Had I then performed what might be termed post-telepathic suggestion, which caused Homer to be awakened at the time designated? I myself had slept through the striking of the town clock. Had my subconscious mind at the appointed time, however, taken some action which aroused Homer? Had some energy gone out from me at the 2 o'clock hour, which had given Homer the impression that I had actually touched him and might even be present in his room? I knew nothing about astral projection or out-of-body experience in those days, and I might have speculated from Homer's report on the possibility that I had left my physical body and paid him a visit, without any conscious awareness of such a happening. Whatever the correct explanation may have been, there was absolutely no question as to the success of the experiment. In later years, with considerable experience behind me, I came to realize that I had stumbled upon the most effective method for transmitting a message. It helps tremendously to hold in mind the mental image of the individual to whom you are sending. By looking at the full-face photograph of Homer, I felt that I was in direct contact with him, and that time and distance had been annihilated. It was as though a circuit had been closed between us as I looked into his eyes and repeated my message again and again. Had Homer been awake, he still might have received my thoughts in his subconscious. But if his conscious mind had been concentrating on something else, it is doubtful if my thoughts, so received, could have been acted upon. You remember that when I received the impression from the mind of the electric linesman not to turn on the light, my entire attention was fixed upon the light at that moment, and the conditions for reception were ideal. In addition, the linesman was emotionally aroused, and I now was convinced that this had been a profound factor in the successful transmission. Obviously, the situation with Homer was not of the kind to arouse in me a feeling of extreme urgency. I could only put behind my sending a strong desire that he receive my communication. You can well imagine that I was greatly heartened with the result and eager to find other subjects willing to conduct tests with me. In the next episode, Lovers Make Up by Telepathy. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on the notification button to join us in the next video.